Hello, everyone. Talk again.
Can you hear me?
You don't need you want them to hear you without you having to pull it out.
You can't hear me at all?
Can we?
No.
We're just doing a mic check. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
What about if Jessie talks?
Can you hear me at all? Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
Sure.
All right, so this is Jessie's first conference talk, so be kind and welcoming. Awesome. So our topic today is Dungeons and Dragons and data breaches, and we're exploring the synergy between security crisis response exercises and running a D&D campaign. Thank you, ChatGPT, for the title. So we're just going to cover off what you see on the slides, just quick introductions. We'll do a bit of an overview of what each of the activities are, talk about the parallels between the two activities, give you some key lessons and takeaways, and if there's any questions required afterwards, then you ask.
All right. So my name's Jessie, for those of you that don't know me, and this is my first conference ever, not even first speaking, first ever conference. I've been working in IT as a consultant for 3 years, and more importantly, been playing Dungeons and Dragons for 8. And yeah, no, I'm excited to be here. How about yourself?
Hi everyone, I'm George. A lot of you know me already. I've been lucky enough to talk at BSides before. I hijacked the last session at the last one, which was lots of fun. So unfortunately, I couldn't do that this time. And I won't hold you up to get your pizzas at lunch. But I'm a cloud solution architect at Microsoft in the security area. So if you have any questions about that as well, you can come and ask me at lunchtime.
Nice. So to start with, who has played D&D? Oh, wow, decent amount of years. Good to hear. So for those of you that don't know what D&D is, it's a tabletop role-playing game where there are broadly 2 roles. So you'll have the Dungeon Master, the DM, who will craft the story and set the tone for the other players. And the other players who will play their characters, think about their intentions, their motivations, and what drives them as characters. And with the main objective of really embodying their character. Why would you play D&D? It's fun, for one. And for 2, it's a really great way to socialize and exercise your creativity skills. D&D is realistically, at its core, you can do what you want, be who you want, and that's really fun to do. How about yourself?
So I'm talking about the less fun, the security crisis response exercises. You would run them so you can actually see if your planning is worthwhile. It's all well and good to have a plan, and then if you get compromised or have an incident, your plan might be useless. So it's probably a good idea to run a tabletop of that plan in a simulated environment so you can look for gaps and weaknesses. So when it does happen, you're able to, hit the road running.
Oh, great.
All right, so we're going to talk about the parallels between Dungeons and Dragons and the exercises now.
Yep, so the first part of Dungeons and Dragons is all about planning and development. A lot of this comes from the DM side of things. So the main thing that they have to do first up is plan their adventure. So what do they want to do? And what's the setting? What challenges and threats do they want their players to face? The second part is really crafting those challenges and quests around the adventure that they've set. And then finally, can't hear me? Okay. And then finally, for the player side of things, the planning and development is really focused on character creation and backstory. You want to know that your character has a good, strong core as a person and has the personality traits that you want to embody. How about security crisis response? How do you plan for that?
All right, so hopefully you've got an incident response plan. That might form the backbone of what you would actually follow. In order to use that, you would start off by creating a story arc for what you want to put your staff or put your team through for your simulated exercise. So you would plan and create some story arcs for that activity. For each story arc, you'd look at developing some scenarios that would happen. So, like you might follow the tried and true path of, compromise, whether it starts off with business email compromise and then, getting access to hosts, pivoting through your system, finding data or encrypting it. And then once you've kind of planned out what you want to be able to test your ability to respond to, you'll select people in your organisation to actually run the exercise. You may not be able to get everyone from your team to run the exercise because they probably have to do work still. This is work, but it's not responding to real alerts or activities that are occurring in your environment. So you would, select them and then you'll conduct a briefing for these people so they know what they're actually up for.
Oh, interesting to hear. The second part that we're going to cover is about conducting the activity. So in Dungeons and Dragons, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you've got appropriate equipment and resources. You wouldn't want to go into battle and then forget you have a sword waiting somewhere else. So realistically, equipment and resource management is a really core part of playing Dungeons and Dragons. Beyond that, it's all about exploration, role-playing and combat. So with exploration, you'd be meeting new characters, exploring different areas and genuinely having fun with other characters. With role-playing, it's all about being the character you wanted to be. And in terms of combat, there are times that your interactions don't go well and you've got to deal with it. Finally, with the conducting the activity, there are dungeon master notes and player action collection. So after a game, usually the dungeon master will write notes on what happened, talk to the players about what went wrong, what went right in the game, and then finally, it would be all about the plot twists and unexpected events. Now, in any good D&D campaign, you'll have a lot of plot twists. You wouldn't want to play a game that's entirely predictable because that wouldn't be any fun for you. And with those plot twists and unexpected events, you really need to know how you're going to react, or at least try to embody your character when you're reacting in that way.
Yeah, so like your crazy evil pyromancer,
Exactly.
was it pyromancer? I forget.
Pyromaniac.
Would respond in unexpected and crazy ways. Yeah. So when you're doing the security crisis response exercise, first of all, you need to make sure you've got the resources to actually conduct the activity appropriately, right? So if it's completely tabletop, those resources might be just time and pizza. If you've got enough, resources available, maybe you'd be able to duplicate a portion of your environment that you want to actually see if you can defend it, and stand all that up. So understanding what's available to you is important. Once you have all of everything set up, then you'd want to actually conduct the activity. So you'd still have someone leading the activity. It's like the equivalent of the dungeon master in a D&D campaign, where you would push that simulation along. That person, or maybe a couple of people, should be observing the way that the response is conducted and collecting data. So write notes. It's not enough just to kind of go, oh, I'll remember that. That's my style, and it's horrible because I forget everything. So write notes around how the activity is going, pain points where your processes and procedures fail. And, even if it's like something simple like, we couldn't get in with domain creds, but we were able to get local access, but we couldn't get the local admin password for whatever reason. So write detailed notes so you've got ways that you can address them later. And, just like Jessie said with the D&D campaign, the person running the crisis response exercise should inject unexpected things because, you can settle into a rhythm and really enjoy what you're doing, but if you don't have a little bit of stress in your simulation, then it's probably not going to replicate what could happen. I don't think you'd ever be able to get like the real stress of an incident unless you've got like a real sadist leading the exercise. And if you did, maybe that's good training, but probably you'd need to take the last slide from Giles' presentation just in case. But have those injects just to mix it up a little bit and make sure that the exercise is worthwhile.
Oh, awesome. And then after we've conducted the exercise, it's all about wrapping up and the lessons learned. So with D&D, like I talked about, there's the debriefing at the end of the game where the players will talk to the DM and we'll figure out what went wrong, what went right, and improvement points for next time. Secondly, would be about the campaign summary and recap. So right at the end of the campaign, there'll be a recap of every single game leading up to the end. And in that time, people have opportunities to ask questions to the DM and provide feedback to them as well, considering they're running the exercise. For the third point is about adjusting the NPC encounters and story depending on the players. So in D&D, you really want to make sure that your NPC encounters are balanced if you're going to combat them, because otherwise you'll kill your whole party, quite frankly, and you don't want to end the game abruptly by accident. So you want to adjust downwards to difficulty if they're too hard, or upwards if the players are having too easy of a time trying to get through. Finally, it's all about the continuing campaign and storylines. So with some D&D campaigns, beyond the campaign you might have one-shots or further campaigns that spin off from them, and these typically involve players that have previously been created, going on and doing different things in their story. So yeah, a nice continuing story. How about yourself?
Before that, so your longest campaign's 8 years.
3 years.
3 years?
I've been playing for 8 years, but 3 years.
So for that 3-year campaign, is that one campaign or is that...
One campaign for that whole time.
So were all the NPCs and encounters like scrub level or...?
To start, to start definitely. Started from level 1, went all the way up to level 20. So at the start, absolutely, because you only have about 10 hit points. So they hit you, you're dead. It's not a fun combat experience when you're that weak. Towards the end of the campaign, we were fighting gods because we were that powerful. So you have to scale according to the level of your players.
That sounds awesome. I want to play some D&D and fight gods. With the crisis response exercise, I think like you normally assume like you're not going to be targeted by a script kiddie at that level 1, right? You would want to try and plan straight away for an adversary with a little bit of skill, because if you can defend against that, then hopefully you can defend against the script kiddie, or the controls that you put in place should mitigate it completely. But anyway, so once you've conducted that exercise, you'll do your evaluation and your analysis, including taking into account the notes that you've written down, feedback from the people conducting the activity. You'd probably write a report of some kind. If you're consuming company resources to run one of these things, you probably need to feed that report up the chain. And it's probably a good thing for a board to have to understand the capability, especially if you're asking for more money to fix. Or get more staff, which I'm sure most teams always want. If you can, you should have a list of improvements, whether it's process, procedure, technology, training. Like there could be a lot of things that fall out from that. So hopefully you can create a plan or implement the improvements, and then have a series of follow-up exercises, whether it's an ongoing periodical security crisis response exercise, or maybe it's like smaller parts of it that you recognise you were quite weak in. So it's just like a part of iterative learning for your environment, so that you can continue to grow as a team. But time, people, like it's like a nice thing. It feels a little bit like a fantasy, like the D&D sometimes in some orgs. But yeah.
All right, now we're moving on to the lessons and takeaways. Mm-hmm. All right, so for our key lessons, the first lesson is collaboration and diversity are strengths. So in a D&D campaign, if you had the same character over and over again, it would be boring really quickly, and the weaker areas of your party wouldn't be addressed. And it would be similar in a security crisis response. You wouldn't want a whole team of non-technical specialists participating in this response. You need balance between the different areas of the business, different perspectives, different levels of education, so that they're all on the same page. So for lesson 2, it's all about adaptability. So adaptability is absolutely essential in D&D and in security crisis response. If yeah, like my pyromaniac, if you can't adjust, you will have a lot of difficulties in the long run. In a D&D campaign, you never know what's going to be thrown at you, neither would you at a security crisis response. The third lesson is about clear communication, and clear communication really is key. In D&D, you need to know that everyone's on the same page about what's going on. You need to plan properly for your combat encounters, and you really want to make sure that the direction that you're going in as a party is agreed upon by everyone involved. And with security crisis response, communication is absolutely key. You need to make sure everyone knows what they're doing, for one, and knows what the outcome is, whether it be good or bad, and talks about it from there.
It'd be like an onion, because you've got communication between the people in the exercise and then communicating outside of the exercise with the organisation. So there's multiple layers of communication. I think, like, for all of us, it's just like a core skill that we need to have. Lesson 4, empathy enhances understanding. So we all have really bad days, we make dumb decisions, we respond poorly. When we're stressed, everything is infinitely worse. And if you have no empathy for your teammates, then I was about to say something not appropriate for YouTube. What's the rating on the stream? Anyway, so you understand, like, you've all been stepped on by a dick before, right? Like, there's no room for that, especially if you're in a stressful situation. You're supposed to be in a team. So empathy is key, right? Because we're all teammates. And the last one is continuous learning leads to growth. The security crisis response exercise is primarily a learning activity, right? So learn from it. Take it seriously, have fun with it, but like I said, take notes, test your processes, and understand where you need to improve.
Oh, good stuff. Now we're on to the takeaways.
Yep. So first takeaway, strategy and adaptation matter. So hopefully build into the strategy for your organisation that these activities are important, and you might have key parts of the strategy that you can test through your response exercise. It might be that you're implementing some compliance frameworks or whatnot, and you want to test whether or not you're actually meeting them through that exercise. So that adaptation is also whether or not you can adapt what you're doing to meet these secondary considerations. Resilience is a common thread between everywhere. Like, it's not just in security, I think, but especially in security, and a 3-year campaign, you'd need to be quite resilient, I imagine, just to get through it.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Third takeaway is the power of teamwork. So in incident response, you need to be working as a team. You need to be working well as a team as well, and you need to know where your teammates' strengths and weaknesses lie to appropriately respond to an incident in the future. In D&D, it's similar, but obviously not the same. But in D&D, the power of teamwork is important for mostly combat encounters, to make sure that someone's not just going to flake on you, walk away mid-combat, and make sure that everyone really wants to be there and doing things together. The final takeaway is imagination fuels innovation. That's the most important part of D&D, and I imagine that imagining what your attackers are going to do is probably a really important part of security crisis response as well. Yep. All right. Thank you for your time. Do you have any questions?
Thanks. Yes.
Often cases, big tabletop exercises, ransomware, net exfiltration, absolutely every day, every time you do a tabletop exercise, fail things. Do you have any interesting novel exercises that use other elements to make it exciting for the organisation?
Not really. I mean, like, being serious about it, if they're your biggest risks, unfortunately, you probably need to spend time trying to mitigate them, right? Because that's where your business is likely to be impacted. But I suppose you could, get a D20 and come up with an interesting scenario, like watch Swordfish and pretend.
There's been a lot of talk with these kind of approaches out there. I was just going to ask, in your opinion, is Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons 5e?
I know there's a wrong answer, and I'm going to be a bit controversial here. I really enjoy 5e. The majority of my the majority of my games that I've played have been 5e. I've only played one Pathfinder. It was really enjoyable. I will do it again, but my experience has been predominantly in 5e area. Obviously, like you're saying, Pathfinder definitely is the better system, but I enjoy 5e better.
Yep.
I know, right? Funnily enough, yeah, I am. Honestly, we've been playing for the whole 8 years together. It's the same table, but that one game has been 3 years. Honestly, sometimes there have been people that haven't shown up. It's hard to get everyone there every single time. I managed to get there every time bar one session, which is a feat in and of itself, but it's more about making sure that the most people are there, more to the point.
Go team.
Yeah.
Awesome. Ask us questions at lunch if you're curious. Thank you.
Thank you.
Religious.